and welcome everyone. Today, we're right in the middle of the RPKI week, and today we have a panel with experts about RPKI and Internet exchange points. So today with me, in alphabetical order, we have Stavros Konstantaras from AMS-IX. He's a network engineer from AMS-IX. So hello, Stavros. Then we have Barry O'Donovan. His title is on the website, it officially is Network Superhero.
Barry didn't give it to myself.
Barry is with us today. We were supposed to have Nick Hilliard from INEX, but Nick had another appointment he had to attend to, a last minute thing. So Barry is joining us, but we're happy to have a superhero instead of just the CTO. You know, there's a plus there. So welcome, Barry. Then we have Mauricio Oviedo from LAC-IX. He is the technical outreach manager down there at LAC-IX. And then last but not least, so we are in alphabetical order, I kept that, is Nick Pratley, a technical team leader from Internet Association of Australia. So today we're going to speak about what Internet exchange points do regarding RPKI. So my first question, and I'll go again in alphabetical order, is how is the situation at your Internet exchange about ROV, about validating RPKI? Do you match RPKI and the IRR, or how do you apply that? So my first question goes to Stavros at AMS-IX. And how do you do ROV at AMS-IX?
Yes. Hi, Max. Hello to all our attendees, and welcome to this panel discussion. Yeah, regarding your question, what do we do about ROV? Yes, we do apply route origin validation. We do have validators in our infrastructure, and the validators actually feed both route servers in AMS-IX Netherlands, but not only that, but also to all remote IXPs that we operate globally. They feed them with a ROA table, and based on the ROA table, we have written some functions for BERT, because we use BERT as a software instance. And every customer that advertises BGP prefixes to us, those BERT functions receive the BGP update messages. They go through the ROA table and they apply route origin validation. If the prefix or the announcement is invalid, we drop the prefixes. We allow the unknowns. We clap our hands when we see valid announcements, of course. And we do this for both route servers and for all IXP points. We also do IRR-based filtering, so based on the policies of the customers that we retrieve from the RIPE database, but also from other IRR databases. Based on that, we also check for valid or invalid announcements. So we have prefix filters for all BGP sessions on the route servers. Not only that, but also our Cisco border routers that we have for the AMS-IX network, for our internal network, they also have RTR sessions with validators. So we also apply route origin validation to the Cisco border routers of AMS-IX. So we make sure we accept the valid announcements from our customers, because we also peer with our customers directly via the border routers. That was a little bit of short answer.
Thank you, Stavros. Let's see, how do you do that at INEX instead, Barry?
Yeah, thanks, Max, and hello, everybody. So at INEX, we have been using RPKI route origin validation since February 2019. So what is that if my maths? It's 2.5 years ago. I suppose the one thing about, when we do something at INEX, we also put that into IXP Manager. So anyone using IXP Manager can check a box, install ROA validators, and have that configuration done for them as well. I think the best current practice, Max, is to indeed also do IORDB. So the way it works with us is after we do some sanity checks on your prefix. We make sure it's not, it's not too small or too large or anything like that, or it's not private space. So once we get past those checks, we check the origin AS is in the set of origin ASs per your IORDB filtering. The reason we do that is, a prefix leaked, a Google prefix leaked with Google's origin AS is still a valid in ROAS. So we have to make sure that your root objects and the set of ASs that we get from that, that the prefix you're advertising has one of those origin ASs. Then we do RPKI. If it's valid, your prefix gets true. If it's invalid, we drop it. And then if it's unknown, we fall back to IORDB prefix filtering.
Okay, thank you, Barry. So while you mentioned IXP Manager, now let me say Barry is the lead for the project there for IXP Manager. And IXP Manager is one of the tools you can use to generate configurations for validating routes. Now, my question is in addition to what I've already asked is, of course, you, Barry, will use IXP Manager, but the other name I know is a route server that is a similar product. It doesn't do everything IXP Manager does, but it helps you in configuring route servers. Do you use, I'll go back to Stavros in a bit, but for maybe Mauricio and Nick, do you use a route server? Do you use IXP Manager? Do you use a combination of the two? Or do you have homegrown tools for generating your configurations? So let's go to Mauricio, who can give us the introduction, and then I have added a bit to the question.
Excellent. So good morning, good afternoon, and thank you much for the question. Yeah, in fact, I'll be talking not directly from the perspective of a single IXP, but from our region, which is Latin American Caribbean, and how have we done so far with ROV. And well, it's been a very interesting journey so far with ROV. In fact, two of the IXPs that started, the first one that started globally doing the ROV were in our region around 2013 and 2014. That's Ecuador and Costa Rica. So since then, it's been a very interesting journey on how can those lessons learned can be shared among other members within our region or other IXs. And so far, it's been quite interesting because numbers keep growing. For example, there are 12 members or 12 IXPs within LAC, which are already doing ROV or origin validation. Then the other 6 LAC-IX members are already in progress on doing it. So it's quite interesting that none of the members are considering not to do it. They already have it or are basically in progress. And 8 of those are already MANRS, part of the MANRS IXP program. So it's been very interesting because the way that it has happened has been learning from the previous ones, right? Learning from the lessons from each IXP. And that's one of the advantages of being part of an association. For example, LAC-IX, where you can share all that knowledge. So it's been a mix of ways of doing it. But something that definitely has been a life-changing has been the automation. And it's an excellent moment to thank the people from INEX, Barry, which is already here, because it has definitely made a change on how the numbers have grown. And we have seen, especially in the past year or year and a half, on how a lot of our IXs have implemented, in this case, IXP Manager, and with it, the MANRS certification, and also the start with ROV. So it's been quite useful so far. Most of them are using IXP Manager, and a couple of the IX, especially the big ones, the bigger ones like Brazil and Argentina, they are using their own mechanisms. However, all the other IXPs are using or in plans of using IXP Manager, which definitely changes the way not only that the IX configures the RPKI and origin validation, but also how members can have an excellent overview of what is going on. And that's something really, really important for them to know what's happening. And the way, in this case, bird's eye is created, it helps a lot with the IX. It's I think that people who is already using IXP Manager will know that. Members can go in, it's very graphical what they can see, and that helps them to have the security that what they are announcing, if it's getting or not to the other members. So it's really useful, and so far we're doing really well. We're very happy to see the progress on implementing RPKI and ROV in our region, and the goal is to have every single IXP within LAC-IX already certified with MANRS, which will be part of the process.
Wow, thank you, Mauricio. That's an ambitious plan, but it's a very good plan, I can see. So, Nick, how are things in Australia instead?
Hey, Max, thank you for the invite and for this opportunity. So we do have our own homegrown portal. We manage 6 IXs in Australia, and we also have 2 over the ditch in New Zealand. We do use a route server with pulling data from our portal. So it was a really long process to get to that point. We didn't have any automation. So this whole project of RPKI and rolling out ROV validation turned into a project that included deploying and coding and building an automation stack for the IXs and a few other fun things like that. So we do all the standard filtering. We filter based on IRRD, and we filter on ROV. Yeah.
So that's also a good thing. Have you thought about maybe opening the tools to others, so open sourcing them like INEX has done?
So at the moment, to be quite frank, the tool set was started in about 2004. It's an old Java Spring Boot application that we've got one developer that can work on. We're currently in the process of doing something about that, and we're looking at pushing that open source at some point soon. But it's very, very early days. I started the membership module on Monday this week, so
oh wow, okay.
Very early days for that one. Yeah.
So the answer is maybe one day.
Yeah, maybe one day. It took us till September 2020 to get automation on the route servers. Before that, it was chat ops and copying and pasting config. So we'll get there.
I see, and I understand. I understand. Thank you, Nick. So the other question is, how did you start with validating prefixes? So how was the progress? Did you go full on from the very first moment, or did you implement it step by step? So the first one would be for Stavros, who I know has, as AMS-IX, you have your own tools and you've wrote your own tooling, right?
Yes, that's correct, Max. We don't use a route server or IXP Manager. We have our own software stack, and we have our own libraries from our developers. So we do support them. So we didn't decide also to open source them because it's quite homemade stuff. Going back to your question, for us, the whole journey started way back, as far as I remember, around 2006. That was before my time. It started as a cool project, and then the AMS-IX engineers back on that time, they created a new set of route servers called the Falcon route servers, where they applied route origin validation based on RPKI and also RR filtering. So it was a new set of route servers working in parallel with the old ones that were quite in free mode, let's say. And then slowly we started encouraging the customers to join also the Falcon route servers to get also some secure prefixes or validated prefixes that are fine. So for quite some period of time, we had to support and encourage customers to work with the legacy route servers plus the new ones. But slowly through the time, the Falcon ones became the de facto the de facto option. And we also saw that they were working quite steadily, and the whole deployment and automation was stable enough. And then when the MANRS time came, we just switched off the legacy route servers, and we encouraged the rest of the customers, which was a very small portion of them, to join the Falcon ones. And then we also removed the Falcon name and became the de facto route servers for AMS-IX, where the filtering was there. So it was a long journey, but it wasn't hard for us to switch to MANRS because we already started doing this way back in time. Does this answer the question? Yeah.
Yeah, sort of. We'll get back to that.
All right. Okay.
So how did that happen at IXPs, Barry?
Yeah, at INEX, actually, I might just say one thing in case I forget later. It just occurs to me that about 2 weeks ago, we published a 6-part series on building root servers with IXP Manager from beginning to end, including installing Bird and validators and the whole lot. I'll throw a link to that into the chat in a minute. It's about 3 or 4 hours of content, and you have to endure me talking through it, but otherwise it's there to see. So at INEX, I suppose one thing at INEX is, we started root servers 13 years ago, and from day one, we were doing IRDB filtering. So our members were well used to the fact that we would filter prefixes. And the other thing that we've always done at INEX is we ran a root collector as well as root servers. And for anyone who doesn't know, that a root collector is a service at an exchange that accepts all routes, but doesn't advertise any. And we use it for administrative and monitoring purposes and things like that. So what we did with our root collector was we applied the RPKI filtering there first so that we could actually see what our members were advertising and what we would filter if we turned it on everywhere else. What it turned out was of about the 80 members we had at the time, we had 4 members with issues, and they were, for the most part, easily fixed. We had one who was advertising a more specific than the ROA allowed for, so that was an easy fix. We had one Origin AS that wasn't matching. We had one member who was still advertising space that had been transferred, and the new owners had registered a ROA. So that was a good fix, and that we were going to start blocking that. And then we had one member who misunderstood what they were doing, and they created a ROA for the upstream PRAS rather than the Origin AS. And we were able to just point those out, get them resolved really quickly. So our timeline was, beginning of week 1 was root collector and contact members with issues. Beginning of week 2, we just flicked over the first root server. And then the beginning of week 3, we flicked over the second root server. So we get it all done in 3 weeks without any major headache. And we've quite often been asked by other IXs how to do it. And for the most part, the advice has always been do one root server, wait a week, and do the second root server. And if you're interested in numbers, Max, I pulled it out from March 2019. In 2019, 12% of the routes advertised had RPKI ROAs. Today, 23% of the routes have RPKI ROAs. And for another interesting stat, 1,000 of the 500,000 routes our root servers see are failing ROAs right now. So just 1,000 of 500,000. 30,000 of those routes are failing IRDB prefix filtering. So the IRDB database has always been that bit dirtier, and that 30,000 would be probably RPKI unknown, and then probably our IRDB invalid or unknown also. So I think the key message there is RPKI hasn't really blocked anyone from doing anything that they would want to do normally.
Yeah. Yes. This is something that we should discuss maybe later on today. But you gave me a tip to move over to Mauricio and ask, in your region, you have probably an additional challenge. You had an additional challenge because there wasn't an established IRR from LAC-IX. So has this helped? Is this helping in bringing in more ROA adoption, RPKI adoption, or how has this played in the region?
Well, that's a very interesting point, Max, because yeah, that's right. Until beginning of 2020, we didn't have in our region the regional IRR. So most of the ISPs or providers were not that used to create security objects. Some of them were using other international tools. However, the process has been very interesting, and it's been a mix. And again, the key has been to learn from the lessons or the experiences from the previous ones. So, for example, with Costa Rica, it was a process where RPKI was deployed since the day one of the IX. However, it was deployed on an informational level, right? So there was no action, no origin validation at the beginning. It was in 2014, and it took a year to activate it in May 2015. So that year gave a lot of information on what are the key questions or why maybe a member may have a concern on activating it. And basically that experience and the one in Ecuador as well speeded up the process on the other IXPs, which basically where we have had the opportunity of collaborating more directly, especially in 6 of them, which are already doing the origin validation. It was done since the beginning. So once RPK was deployed, origin validation was activated. However, the process before that, or the previous days or weeks, were key in that process to lower the concerns of the members. Usually they are very happy. It's basically the rule. They are very happy on seeing standards get into the IX, and that helps everyone, right? So they know that there's some homework that they need to do, and with RPKI they have to do their share, right? They need to go ahead and certify their prefixes. However, if they know beforehand how is everything already going, for example, in a members meeting, if they know what's the status of the routes so far, that helps. Usually there are not a lot of invalid prefixes. There are more unknown prefixes, and the ones that are invalid are usually very fast to fix. So that basically helps to give the proper message, which is not that is something super complicated and very difficult, but in some cases where the number of members within the IX are quite large, so it's good to have that phased process. However, if a check is done, review of the status of the prefixes is done before, both things can be done. And if an IX is starting, so I think that it should be almost a must, right? To start with RPKI and origin validation. Otherwise, it will be more difficult to put it on later. It's better just to start with it, put it on the design since the very beginning, and that will help a lot with it. And in this case, in our region, once LAC-IX got the IRR, it was an excellent opportunity to facilitate the members to create both at the same time, the ROAs and the IRR objects. And it's quite easy because once you create the RPKI ROAs, you just need to go and hit a click and to automatically create from that information the RRR data. So LAC-IX made it very easy for us to do it, and it's been part of the process. Once a member goes and create the ROAS, automatically they can create the RRR. So it's quite easy to do it. We thank LAC-IX for that, because that helped a lot. And even though it started in 2020, it's now very easy to do it, and it's helping a lot of the IXs to get the members on board.
Thank you, Mauricio. So I know that having a procedure where you create a ROA and then automatically a route object gets created has been in the works or an idea at some other RIRs for the last few years. But I don't know the exact implementations, if they're happening or if anything is still in the works. But that's a good feature that hopefully all the RIRs will have one day. So Nick, how was it for you?
It was a very long and interesting journey for us. We started in July 2020. We got there probably around September 2020 is the date we went live with this. So good 3 or 4 months. We started with the consultation of members. We ran a presentation at one of our online series, which I hijacked for 20 minutes to go over it with all of our members and point out what we were going to do, show the timeline, etc. From there, we didn't go as far as having a route collector across the exchange. I just wrote a bunch of scripts using some Python radix trees to grab every single prefix across the network and validate it using the Cloudflare's Octo RPKI toolset. So we validated it. We came up with a list of, I think it was around 300 or 400 prefixes that were going to be dropped at the time we enabled it. And not that many. We worked with all of our members to get as many of them as we could fixed up in the next couple of months. It was a bit trickier after that. We had a couple of old route servers still sitting on Ubuntu 12, 14, 16, running Bird 1.6.2, which doesn't even know what RPKI was. So we went through every single route server, upgraded all 14 of them to the latest Bird versions, upgraded them all to the latest Ubuntu versions. It was a very hitless project. Essentially, it was all scripted. It took about 5 hours one night to do all of RS1 across the 6 exchanges. Then a week later, we did all of RS2 across all the exchanges. And on the 1st of September at 9 o'clock in the morning, I sent an Ansible playbook to the network and pressed go to turn RPKI validation on everywhere. And come 10 past 9, we were dropping invalid routes on the 1st of September. It was a long software project. There was a lot of automation we had to do, lots of code to write and test, and yeah.
Okay, that's an interesting journey. But let me ask you, and now this is a new question, and we'll go in the opposite way order than we did so far. So Nick, you're going to be the first one. When you saw the invalids show up, how do you normally also talk to your members to understand what's the reason for having an invalid and to help them correct it?
So we didn't have any automation even for notifications and alerts like that. So the automations were myself and my 2 network engineers. We'd pick up the phone, we'd call them, we'd email them, we grabbed a list, we did a presentation, all the details were in the presentation. Every member that had an invalid role was watching that presentation. They were called out there and promised to fix it at that time as well. So we were very active with them, and there was just like a hand-holding process personally with them. There wasn't any automated ticket system that we'd use to send any data, but it is something that we're looking to investigate into the future.
Okay, so there are some tools that have been written just for this. There's a BGP alerter, for example, that you could use to notify also your members. I know there are a couple of exchanges we know Namex, for example, that runs it for their own members, and then uses it to understand what's happening in the on their platform. So Mauricio, how do your members get in touch with the with those announcing invalids or having issues?
Well, something that we promote a lot is to create a strong local community triggered by the IX, so that the members can know each other, that there's a fluent communication between the IX and the members. So that always helps it, because most of the communication is done directly and personalized to the members. So if someone has a problem, they notify the member and they provide direct assistance. So that helps a lot to create that trust between them. And at the same time, in some of the events, one of the key things are being with that goal of being certified with MANRS, because there's one of the actions which is directly related to it, the action 2.1, right, to offer assistance to members on creating their ROAs and so on. And so if they are certified, that's part of their process, right, to be able to communicate, to get that direct assistance. And as well, the ones that are using IXP Manager, it's quite easy to for a member to go ahead and check not only how is everything going, but also to see what's a problem, right? Where's the problem? I don't know about any specific tools, for example, that they are using to do like automated alerts. That'll be something very interesting to have. Those automatic alerts. However, I do know for some of the IXs who run periodical processes to see the status, some of them on a weekly basis or every few days, to see how's the status of the routing table. And then from there, if they find any invalid rows, so they notify the members. It would be quite interesting to maybe to have that on IXP Manager, to have a view from the IXP management perspective on how's the status of the routes. So it goes to the wish list. But again, if there are different tools that can be automated, that will definitely help. And always automation will speed up the process.
So let's see how Barry does it, how INEX does it, and if they have any tips for doing it in a more automated fashion.
I mean, I'll start by just endorsing something Mauricio said, which is if anyone is starting a root server service today, they should absolutely start by full RPKI and IORDB filtering. The last thing you want to do is have to turn it on down the road. At INEX, as I already said, we were always doing our IORDB filtering. So when we turned on RPKI, there was very little members to contact, and we just reached out to the 4 directly that had the issues that popped up. Of course, there are some networks, like there's, for example, Hurricane Electric. They're going to trip a lot of filters, but that's in a different category of network, and INEX isn't going to try and solve that problem with Hurricane Electric. But for 80% of the members where there's probably less than 10 prefixes, that's certainly where we want to try and help those members and make sure they're getting as much traffic over the exchange as they can. So one thing we do have, I don't know if this addresses the feature request Mauricio was talking about, there are 2 ways of seeing prefixes that are being blocked in IXP Manager. There is the looking glass, which is often publicly available, and it is at INEX. But also when you log in as an individual member, one of the screens you have is a live check that goes across the root servers and says, this prefix is being filtered because of these reasons. And it could be, invalid ROA, it could be, it's a /25 or a /26 when it should be a /24, for example. So that's all there. That's quite live within the system. And the other check that we do is when we're dealing with a member, we will always log into that member's overview in IXP Manager, and that stuff pops up where we can say, listen, by the way, you should check these because we see we're filtering 2 of your prefixes. And then the last thing is when we're provisioning a new member, part of that process is checking all of their prefixes and getting them to fix those issues as part of the turn-up.
Thank you, Barry. And Stavros, do you have any other suggestion or any automation you use for this?
Yes, actually, what we did with AMS-IX, I think it was back again in 2019, we developed a homegrown tool that goes and checks the prefixes that have been dropped as invalids, as RPKI invalids. Not only that, when we extend it also for IR invalids, and then what we do is that we summarize them and we notify the customers by a simple mail at the end of the month that, okay, those are the prefixes that we drop for you on the route servers because of this and this and that reason. And we give this summarization email to the customer, and the customer gets notified, okay, those prefixes are not propagated because of RPKI issues or policy issues. In majority of the cases, customers, what they do, they fix the problems, and then they ask us again to check that, okay, prefixes are being propagated correctly. But then there are also cases that customers come back to us and say, yeah, okay, why are you dropping this and what's the reason? And yeah, can you please explain? And actually, most of these customers are not aware that we have policy checks and RPKI validation implemented. So we have to go via a process of educating them to, okay, this is what we do. You can read more details in our website. So one good tip for all the IXPs is to include all this information in your website, because it's a repetitive task to educate your customers, or at least provide them an initial guideline. And you're going to have a lot of those customers as much as you grow as an IXP, and especially if you have customers coming from outside Europe. In that case, you have to send them to the technical page, tell them, okay, read this first, this is what we do, why we do it, these are the benefits. And then if you need more information, you can go to RIPE-NCC, or there are webinars outside that you can follow up and educate yourself. And yeah, this notification system actually currently is down for us because we need to improve it a little bit. We also noticed from our side that we need to improve a little bit the wording, the templates. Some customers need extra education, as I said, so they don't really get it. So we need to improve it a little bit. We understand our our fault mistakes, but we need to turn it up again soon. And that's in the plan for September, October.
Thank you, Stavros. So I have, yeah, I see Mirza is mentioning, we need tools from you, Stavros. Do share some with us. What I'm actually gonna do is I'm going to post a link in a moment that is about how-to videos that were created specifically for this week on how to create ROAs. And you get the plus, one of them, if you are in the RIPE region, you can listen to my wonderful voice explaining how to create ROAs in the RIPE-NCC LAR portal. So don't throw, I'm lucky we're not in person, so you cannot throw tomatoes my way. But let me use this to go to Nick and ask him, how much hand-holding have you seen? You've mentioned you've done presentations, you've brought people in who had invalids, and you focused on these people to try to help them. Can you tell us how much hand-holding has been required so far? And then additionally, let me couple in a question. When you talk to someone about implementing ROV, if you do it, do you also provide them with your own validators? Do you have public validators you offer to your members, or do you have any other piece of infrastructure you offer to the members who want to do validation? Do you have any other suggestions?
Cool. So we don't specifically run public validators. We use our validators just for our route servers. We do run 2 of them at the moment, looking to probably expand one out into New Zealand as well. So Perth, Sydney, and potentially New Zealand moving forward. There was a lot of hand-holding, but I don't consider that bad. I consider that as a very good thing for our members and for the internet generally. We're always here to try and help people move toward the right way. And clean routing tables, dropping routes that are misconfigured, such as invalid RPKI routes, is cleaning up these tables that are just becoming really, really messy. And we're going to sit down, we're going to help people, and we're going to spend that time with them. There was a lot of hand-holding initially to begin with, and there were a lot of people that were asking a lot of questions, and it did cause a few people to quickly rush through the door and create rowers, because there was a misunderstanding from a couple of our members that initially they thought we were going to drop unknown routes as well. And I don't know if anyone else has seen that, but it was something that popped up as part of this journey for us. And we had to kind of hold members' hands in that regard as well, in that no unknown routes will never be dropped, because it's just as it currently is now. We'll just stick to IRR filtering for them. And we're definitely dropping invalid routes. And it was hard for people initially to understand that invalid routes needed to be dropped, because they don't go with the intent of the network operator that's created that rower. The owner of that address or that AS has created this rower saying this is specifically not allowed, don't let it happen. But people didn't seem to understand that dropping those routes meant fixing that problem. So there was a bit of education in that regard as to dropping the routes is good, because it goes against the intent of the owner of that IP address. Given that you're the owner of that IP address, please just go into the portals and change your intent by creating a rower that stipulates what you want to do.
Okay, so you're saying basically an effort for hand-holding at the beginning, but then not much later on.
There hasn't been that much later on. I mean, we went through this RPKI journey at the same time that a lot of the larger ISPs did as well. So they were putting a lot of information out about it. We were putting a lot of information out about it. I think it was 3 of the big 4 ISPs in Australia were going through this journey in mid-2020 at the same time. And yeah, like that just... Okay.
Let me ask Mauricio if that is the same situation they've had in LAC, or if that is or if they had a different experience.
Well, it's a mix, right? It depends a lot on when RPKI is being turned on. However, it's not something unknown that it do needs very direct assistance, or a lot of direct assistance, especially when you're turning it on in an IX which has been running for years, right? So it needs a little bit more of help, especially at the beginning. However, that also gets to a point where it's not necessarily something that the IX needs to do it by itself and only by itself. In our region, for example, we have received a lot of support from LAC-IX, from ISOC on this. LAC-IX organizes a lot of events regarding to creating ROAs, to promoting the creation, to giving information, especially for IXs. We've done a lot of very specific IXP-based trainings. So that helps a lot with ISOC and the fellowship program on MANRS. The MANRS fellow, they have done a splendid job within our region, going and doing workshops on different IXPs. And also from LAC-IX, we have organized workshops, MANRS workshops for the whole members and the technical community. So that definitely helps a lot to speed up the process, to get the different members with more knowledge, more confidence on doing it, applying it, and to move forward. And at the same time, again, with a certification like the MANRS certification, it makes it a constant process, right? And it's not something that you do once. but you keep constantly doing it for your members. So that helps a lot to keep it on the road, to keep it on the top priorities of the members, and they get more and more experience, and maybe they are also even able to help others in the past. We have seen it, for example, in some of the workshops where there are members who will come and provide their experience and their lessons learned to other members that are planning to create the ROAs and to certify with MANRS. So that really helps. And then on the other side, it's not only, again, a process of the IX itself, but also to rely on these trusted parties that are around.
More of a shared approach to solving the problem. Yes. So Barry, was it any different for you?
Yeah, I don't think so, Max. I don't have any recollection of doing any major handholding. Was one thing INEX does do, or at least we did do in pre-COVID times, is we have 3 to 4 in-person member meetings a year. So we would have flagged RPKI coming up well in advance. I recall doing a demo of creating a ROA using RIPE's web interface at one of those meetings. We did make it clear that IRDB will continue to work as is. So there was no major handholding. I think one advantage we found was at INEX, we've always been quite strict when it comes to route objects, which is if you have a route that covers a /16, for example, and you try and advertise 2 /17s, we'd block them unless you had route object for /17s, because Nick has always said that if you're going to advertise a route, then your policy should match that route. And I guess the one thing that things became easier with RPKI ROAs was you can actually set a window on what you might want to advertise. So it was quite easy to tell those members to go off and create a ROA object rather than create multiple more route objects in that situation.
Now, can I ask you a quick question while you raise this? And I would take the opportunity also to tell everyone, I see we have 59 people participating here, and I say participating because I'd like you to ask questions. We haven't had any so far, so please, if you have any question, ask it. But let me ask you, Barry, when you so there is a difference between when you create a route object and it's immediately visible in the database, and ROAs that take a while to show up in RTR in the validators. Do you see this as an issue for RPKI, or has this created any issues for you so far? And then I'll go also and ask Stavros maybe the same question.
Yeah, Max, it's never been an issue, and it's never come up as an issue. I think a lot of people are used to not getting instant gratification on things like that, because even if you create the route object, we're still going to have to pull that down, update our database, regenerate the bird configuration file, and that could often take 6 to 12 hours before we might do that on the cron job. Whereas if you do it in RPKI, it might happen in 15 minutes, which is a lot better than IRDB. Just the route appearing in the database doesn't mean it makes its way into our bird configuration that quickly.
That's the kind of answer I was looking for, because then many people criticize RPKI for being in a certain way slow in updating, but then you showed that actually there are other factors to consider. Stavros, is it the same in for AMS-IX?
Yeah, good question. So indeed, it takes, as Barry said, 15 minutes more or less. It's okay. I don't consider it slow. But yeah, we do have customers that they don't have, they're not patient enough. They demand it to be updated immediately, as fast as possible. And also by ourselves, we update the route servers every hour actually. So we push new bird configuration with new ROA table every hour, and we are the fastest, I would say, in the IXP community, and still have some complaint. Not much, of course, not much, but always somebody comes and wants to be faster, especially when you have customers or that they have mistakes. and you point out their mistakes. Okay, you look, we drop your prefixes because they're invalid, and this for this and this reason. They go to the RIPE database, update the policy, or they go to RPKI system, they update the ROAs, and they demand these changes to be pushed in 5-10 minutes, and then they send email to NOC and say, yeah, well, I just did it 5 minutes before, and I still don't see any change. What are you doing? Or why are you lazy? No, we're not lazy. Just, things take a bit of time. So you always have these customers. Anyway, we always strive for excellence. So I would definitely like to work in the future with the community and try to be faster on that. Not that there is a big demand, but there is no problem on being faster and more accurate, and don't have these invalids for a long time. If a customer makes his objects correct and objects are valid, then let's put them in production as fast as possible. It's good for everybody.
Good. So I have a quick question for all of you. What validators do you use? Which ones do you use? Because I see there's a discussion on the chat about FORT, about the graphical interface or UI, user interface for validators. Which ones do you use? So let's go with Nick.
Yep, so we're using Octo RPKI toolkit from Cloudflare, which generates a JSON file and takes all the processing away from anything really. And we're just using then a couple of GoRTR instances that are consuming that JSON file and talking the RTR protocol straight to the route servers, which are running Bird 2.07 now, and they just hold that state in an RPKI table next to the master table. And anytime a route is added, removed, or changed in there, it just gets run across all the validation rules again, including the RPKI rules.
Thank you, Nick. So Octo RPKI. Mauricio, what is used in the region?
Well, at the beginning, it was the RIPE validator, because start very early on this process, and it was the one mostly available at that moment. But things have changed with the pass of the years, and now the most common ones to have are FORT and Route. And we usually recommend, or where we can provide direct assistance as well, we usually go for both at the same time, so we can have diversity. And they have worked splendid. We have no complaints, and are really easy to install. So there's no excuse for not having them.
Thank you, Mauricio. And Barry, what do you use?
Yeah, we started off by using RIPE NCC's validator. Now I know that was a proof of concept and it's since been discontinued, so we've switched. We always try and use at least 2 different versions of, or 2 different software trains where possible. So now we use Octo RPKI and Routinator. We have documentation for all 3 on docs.ixpmanager.org. Each root server will do RPKI to router, that protocol, with each of those. And the nice thing about validators is they're not mission critical, in that if they crash, your router will retain those ROAs for a period of time. And our configuration that XP Manager spits out has, I think, the upper limit on that. Maybe it's something like 24 hours. I need to check it, but there's enough time there for you to be alerted, even at a weekend, get to a machine and fix in the event that you had to crash for some reason.
And then worst case is if your router doesn't get any data about ROAs, then all the prefixes are then considered unknown. So you're basically just not filtering invalids, but you're not creating any issue to the rest.
Correct. Yeah, you're falling back to IRDB.
There you go. Yes. So let me ask you a small additional question. What route servers do you use? You use Bird or OpenBGPD or?
Yeah, so XP Manager at the moment only works with Bird, and for RPKI it's Bird 2. We are planning to add support for OpenBGP this year with XP Manager as well. The the problem with adding support is it's not just a matter of spitting out the configuration, because there's a whole ecosystem with IXP Manager. So there's the looking glasses, there's all the tooling and the monitoring that builds in around it, and how it's all generated. So it's not just getting the config right, it's getting the whole ecosystem right, so that we can release it with on-par support. But yeah, ideally we'd like people to be able to use 2 different versions of software for their root servers.
Thank you. And Stavros, what validators do you use?
Yes, we started with RIPE NCC validator, of course, just like everybody. It was the only one available back on time. Later on, we had some issues with stability of RIPE NCC validator. I mean, all the community knows that. And then it became a little bit of critical service because we also update the route servers in an hourly manner. And then we, together with NLNet Labs, we provided feedback. They developed the Routinator, which was a great piece of software. So we immediately deployed it in our infrastructure in parallel with the RIPE NCC validator. And actually what we do when it's about time to deploy a new configuration for the route servers, we take feedback from both validators and we compare the data sets. And based on the comparison, we select the best one to push it to the route servers. And then we push the configuration. So if one validator goes down, we always make sure we have another one up and running to feed the route servers with the route table. So now we have a more robust and more stable setup. And yes, coming back to the other question, we use Bird as a route server, still on version 1.68. But the looking glass, which is on top of a route collector, is based on Bird 2. And we have it in production for more than a year and looks very stable. So we will make some planning for the near future to also start moving the route servers to Bird 2 as well. And OpenBGPT is coming as well, as we are founding members of this whole RSSF project. So it's also in the planning to deploy in the next 6 months, the first OpenBGPT instance in production.
Nice, nice. Nick, question for you as well. So what route servers do you use?
Oh, sorry, we're running Bird.
Bird, okay.
Yeah, so it started as 1.6.2. Some of them got upgraded to 1.6.8. And I just upgraded all of them to version 2 for RPKI. So we've settled on 2.0.7. There's a couple of interesting little features, but it works really well.
Okay. So I have one last question. That is, what advantages do you see when you have an internet exchange that joins MANRS? What do you see as an advantage? What do you see as a gain from doing so? Nick?
So we're still on that journey. There's still a few things that we need to tick off in order to join and be compliant, but it's a really good starting point for IXPs to be running secure route servers, and it's a really good set of guidelines for us to follow and aspire to.
Yes. Okay, thanks. And Mauricio?
Well, I think that there are at least 2 major benefits on doing it. The first one is telling the world that you really want to apply best practices, to make it public, right? For the IX to demonstrate they really want to apply best practices and to give an example internally in their local community on why it's important to do it, right? To promote with the example, or to evangelize with the example itself. And then also because it's a win-win for the IX and for the members, because it works both ways. For the IX, it will be excellent to have it because they can provide an island of security. They will be able to standardize the processes that they have to make it recurrent, and also to get access to a lot of information training that at the end will help the IX to grow and to mature in a more stable and standardized way. And on the other hand, it's implicit the help to the members, so that they can also move towards the MANRS operators certification. So it will be also a win for the members having the IX being on MANRS, because they will provide a lot of help. They will provide assistance, trainings, and a lot of information, which at the end ends up providing benefits to the whole local community and the internet community as a whole. So I think that at the point that we are at, considering joining or not MANRS shouldn't be a consideration. It'll be just a matter of when and what's needed. And in our experience, what have we seen with all the IXs in LAC-IX is that sometimes joining MANRS is it's closer than what they really think. It's just a matter of checking what's left, but usually it's quite they are quite close together if they are not there yet. So it's something that should be in every road, and if an IX is on the process of formation, it should be a must to start with it.
So it helps you get a bit of like a roadmap that you can provide to your members as well. Do you feel the same, Barry?
Very much so, Max. IXPs run well, run securely, are of benefit to all IXP operators, and it could only take a few badly run IXs to create a reputation problem for all of us. One of the things that we do with IXP Manager is we advertise it as something that teaches and implements best practice, but that's also MANRS compliant. And when you operate a root server, you are taking on a huge responsibility to the members that are using your root server to exchange their prefixes with other members. So there is a big onus on the IX operator to do it right. And being able to say that you're MANRS compliant gives your members a huge amount of comfort that they can trust your root server to do the right thing.
So it's a good point about the trust. Stavros?
Yeah, I think the previous panelists covered me perfectly. Again, it's a benefit. From an IXP point of view, it's good that you follow the MANRS program, because you can ensure you always follow the best practices in routing security, and you don't miss any valid point. And then the customers also gain trust that you do some effort in order to keep the internet more robust and more stable, and they get valid prefixes from you. So in case of even somebody does a misconfiguration and does a prefix leak, you do your best to cover this situation, and they will not get it from you. So I think the previous guys said everything.
Perfect. So we have an agreement here. Thank you, everyone. We didn't get questions, but we do have questions for the participants now. I'll hand it over to Amrish for the closing part of this session. And I thank again Nick, Mauricio, Barry, and Stavros in order on how they appear on my screen. So Amrish, please.
Great. Hello, everyone. Yeah, so we're already 6 minutes past the hour, so I hope we will not be losing people. So please stay, because it's t-shirt time, and I will launch the poll. We have 3 questions today, and 3 questions around validators. And we talked about validators today, so it's right. It's the right topic. So let me launch the poll, and I'll give around maybe 20 seconds for each question. There you go. So the first question is about the trust anchor locator, which is a very important thing for validators. So what is a trust anchor locator? Is it a file that contains a list of ROAs? Is it a plain text file that contains the location of an RPKI Apex certificate? Or is it a file that contains a manifest? Give you a few more seconds. All right. Great. We move to the next question. So what is the role of a relying party software? Is it a tool that validates BGP announcement, or is it a tool that fetches and validates content from an RPKI repository? Or is it a tool that fetches content from the WHOIS database? Easy one. Yeah, a few more seconds and I will stop that one. There we go. We share the results. Of course, a relying party software, which we also call a validator, is a tool that fetches and validates content from an RPKI repository. Next and last question is about the protocol, which is used by a router to receive RPKI prefix origin data from a validator. Is it async, RRDP, or RTR? Right, a 5 more seconds and I will stop that one. All right. So the protocol which is used by the router to talk to the validator is the RTR protocol, which is the RPKI to router protocol. 75% of our attendees answered it right. So that's it. We will now randomly select the winners and send out the t-shirts. Bravo. Over to you,
Okay,
Max.
Well, thank you, Amrish. So I hope you all got them all right, like Mirza said, has done. Now, let me thank again the panelists for today. Let me thank Mauricio, Nick, Stavros, and Barry. And I hope to see you again tomorrow and Friday. We have more sessions with more content. And thank you very much for being here. I hope this was interesting enough to participate in. We didn't get any questions, but this maybe means that we could answer all of them directly during our conversation. So thank you very much. And I see you tomorrow or on Friday or at any other stage. Thank you very much again for being here with us.
Thank you, people. Have a good afternoon or morning.
Thanks. Bye.
Recording